Not here to waste no more time. Excited to be back. Episode 4 of 4. With Jake Gould yet again. Appreciate him for joining us this week, and we're introducing guys to be on the show each week. And he definitely is a voice that we definitely appreciate and enjoy on this week, and will be a voice that you guys can recognize going forward. And appreciate you joining us again today. Here to talk about UFC 287, the episode we've all been waiting for. We've had 3 episodes. We talked NCAA, we talked NBA, we talked NFL. Also out the way now. We're done with that. Now to the important stuff. This fight this weekend, Adesanya and Pereira fighting for the second time. I'm excited for that as the main card. Also, we got Masvidal versus Burns. 2 great fights coming up beyond, as well as some other ones beyond that. But most excited for these 2 and love for your insight, Jake. So we're here for 287, and I just want to jump straight into it. To be honest, I'm excited. And what do you think about this first matchup? This main one that we got between Adesanya and Pereira matching up yet again?
Man, look, this is the type of question we got to ask. Is it repeat or is it revenge? And there comes a time in every great champion's day where they run into somebody who maybe they don't lose to them, but you start to see this is a bad matchup.
Right.
And these guys are fighting for the second time in the UFC, but this will be their 4th time fighting each other.
Correct.
And what makes Israel Adesanya just the terrific champion that he was is he's got this incredible striking. And what he brought with him from kickboxing was the ability to fight from range, using all of his limbs. I mean, you could see the influence of Anderson Silva in the way he fights. You could see the fluidity. You could see that Israel Adesanya, I mean, I didn't grow up watching too much anime or Dragon Ball Z, but you can see that he fights like somebody who grew up idolizing these superheroes, these people with all this type of talent, like playing these type of games. Like that's who he is, and he's been able to pick apart, in 4 years, 10 title fights. That's what you got to tip your cap and say, wow, we as a fight fan, you got to tip your cap and be really appreciative of the fact that somebody is that active when we got so many champions these days, boxing and MMA both, who fight, get paid, sit around, wait for a while, and that activity is not there. Izzy has been just delivering fights that fans want to see. But a lot of I'm not trying to diminish him because again, I think he's one of the best refined, most technical fighters in the game. But when you get into the UFC, which is a combination of different forms, multiple combat disciplines, right?
Correct.
Now Izzy is in there against a guy who also a kickboxer. So it's not like Izzy's against a jiu-jitsu specialist who's learned how to throw hands when they turn 24. He's going up against a guy basically the same height, basically the same reach. The weight is the same, but come fight night, Pereira has packed on a lot more weight than Izzy has. So when Izzy is throwing these strikes, a lot of times they're knocking down some of these guys. I mean, he in the first fight in UFC, he rocked Pereira.
He did. I remember that.
It was towards the end of the round though, and he was able to get his wits with him.
Clock saved him.
Yeah, and then recover, and you get an extra 5 seconds. Maybe Izzy finishes the fight there. Doesn't work like that. And Pereira, with that way he rehydrates, and the guy's truly like a light heavyweight. And a big reason why he is not fighting a division above is because his training partner was Glover Teixeira, who was he respected him so much, and he fought at the light heavyweight division. And he's like, well, if you're in that division, I'm not going to be in that division, and I'm going to and I can cut this weight, and I can make this middleweight limit at my current weight. And so he's like what a lot of people would call in combat sports a weight bully.
Got it.
And if you can cut that weight, all power to you, Right. So Izzy's, I got to see him like fight with a little bit more confidence. Like he's confident in his ability to land his shots, but I don't think he's as confident in his ability to really hurt him.
Got it.
And I think Pereira knows, like, I've shared the cage, the ring with you for multiple rounds.
Yeah. And handled you.
That's a nasty shot right there.
And I'm up 3-0, but some people will point to the kickboxing matches and say Pereira didn't deserve a win in one of them, so it could be a 2-1.
Sure.
But either way, he knows what Izzy does best. We all know what Izzy does best. That's throw hands. That's kick. That's change from orthodox southpaw. Really fluid. But man, I have a hard time seeing Izzy get enough to really hurt Pereira.
You think he loses again, huh?
Izzy's the favorite, and I would love to see for the division. I would love to see these guys, have a trilogy at some point. So that would involve he's got to win one, or else this
right. Yeah, it's a clean sweep.
When you lose 4.
Right.
We know that, So as a fan, I would selfishly like to see Izzy win, but I think he can win by decision. And certainly, like you said, we saw him in the UFC 281. We saw him hurt Pereira, but he recovered pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I think I see a little bit more like of a timid approach. He's a lot more cautious when he's fighting Pereira than he's fighting these other dudes. And that's because he respects Pereira's power.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
He respects that he is also a refined striker.
Right.
And I think it's just one of those things where it's like you look in boxing, Deontay Wilder was knocking everybody out and he's put everybody down on the ground, and it's been super easy for him until he ran into the one guy that was taller than him, that weighed more than him, that had a bigger reach than him, and was a better boxer. And then that's called your kryptonite.
Yeah.
And I think early returns say he's his kryptonite, and Izzy can win this one. But I really think out of 10 times these guys fight, whether it's the cage, whether it's kickboxing, I'm favoring Pereira to win more than, and that's why I think, okay, you can make Izzy the favorite if you want, because if it goes to a decision, it's probably likely that he's put together more rounds because he's a little bit more crisp.
As you said, though, the way they both punch and kick is. Do you think he even gets there? I'm sure one of them's going to get dropped again with how they both fight. They fight very very physical. They both get to it. As you pointed out, they have dazed each other multiple times and all of that. So it's very possible that it doesn't even get there. So do you think do you think we even get to a decision, or you think one of them gets dropped again?
I got Pereira knocking him out in the 4th round.
Got it.
Okay. And again, it's not necessarily what I want to see happen. But,
tell the truth how it is. Sometimes the truth hurts. It's all right.
Sometimes the truth hurts, and I think Pereira is going to let Izzy try to set traps, and then he's going to try to pounce on those traps, and it's going to only take one.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah. A small thing, but I follow Adesanya a little bit. I like Izzy and his character, anime style, all that kind of stuff that he does. There's been many fights where heading into it, he gets very vocal. He talks a lot. He just doesn't mind jumping on people's podcasts, all types of stuff, and being just very active on social media, wherever the case. This fight I've seen, unless maybe I missed it, but I haven't seen too much. I think he's just been locked in. Like, let me not say nothing because
all business.
Yeah, it might not go as I hope. So, he seems to be locked in, and that could also be a good thing for the fight if he really truly is focused and wants to make sure that we potentially get to a trilogy, which will be a result of him winning this matchup. So I'm very excited, glad they're both locked in. I'm interested to see how this plays out. You got him dropping him in the 4th. I can see that same thing. I'm not as much of an expert as you are, so I'll just co-sign that. But I see also that Izzy can put up a great fight too, and hope for his sake that he does well. So yeah, very excited for this fight on Saturday night. It's going to be a great one. Another one that one of the undercards leading into this fight, that's going to be a great one. We got Masvidal versus Burns also. That's going to be a great fight. Before we talk about Masvidal, he's been up and down for some time now, and potentially could be on the verge of retirement if things don't go well in this matchup. How you see it going against Burns on Saturday as well?
I'll be honest. Jorge is a fun fighter.
Sure.
Love, I think the
sounds
flying,
like a butt is coming.
Yeah, the flying is coming. It's coming.
I feel it.
The flying was an example of the thinker that he is in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like he knew that when things get uncomfortable for Askren, right? Like he ran at Ben Askren,
You know, that's
wrestler.
a hilarious clip.
Right. Yes, he ran at him, and Ben Askren is a wrestler, so muscle memory is everything in fighting, and his base skill set is a wrestler. So what is he going to do if he doesn't know what to do? He's going to, drop to the ground and try to wrestle, put himself in a position to do what he does best. And he knew that's exactly what was going to happen. Dropped his head, and then boom, flying knee. And the legend of Jorge Masvidal, the legend of Jorge Masvidal was really born that night and carried from him fighting in the backyard in Miami for Kimbo Slices, his whole thing going on. So this is his hometown. It adds a layer of excitement to this fight that otherwise, I mean, Gilbert Burns, he's a 5-1 favorite for a reason. More complete of a wrestler. Jorge's like, he's got the striking. He's got some good rhythm when he's throwing his punches. He can throw some knees. He can throw some kicks, But Burns, man, I just seen more from Burns to where Masvidal is riding a three-fight losing streak.
Correct.
And Burns went and took on the boogeyman of all boogeymen. Like nobody was really rushing to fight Khamzat Chimaev. And he went in there and said, okay, Khamzat's finishing everybody in the first round. Well, how about I take him the distance and show you that maybe he's not like that, but also I'm like that. And I think, both Gilbert and Jorge are guys that like, they're not the biggest 170-pound fighters, but Gilbert, I think, has a little more static strength and he can do more, I feel like, when it comes to the grappling. And that leads me to believe that Gilbert Burns wins this fight. And after 4 fights of losses in a row, I mean, I don't know really where else you can go with a Jorge other than like if you're still trying to. There's other veterans that are big names. You got your you got your Tony Fergusons. You got your Conor McGregors. Those fights still sell themselves, but is that what they want to keep doing? I don't know. And maybe this is that time where, I mean, Masvidal hinted at it in the build up to the fight on the UFC Embedded and the countdown that like, this could be it. And I mean, if he has a great performance, but just loses, nothing to hang his head on, he retires where it all started in Miami, where he was fighting in Kimbo's backyard. And now he's fighting in front of everybody for the UFC's return to Miami for the first time since 2005. I could totally see it. And I think that is what ends up happening is Masvidal loses. And that might be it from what we see from him.
Got it. Okay. Well, I can do the same thing because I do know that Burns is a major threat right now. And Masvidal, as you pointed out, has been struggling a little bit. So to our question as well, as you kind of already pointed to, so that'll be it then. You think for Masvidal, if he loses this, he's done?
Like, I never want to retire a guy, but I think.
But yeah,
but I never want to retire a guy. But what I see is like there are people who want to be a champion, and when you lose to Covington, when you lose to Kamaru, when you lose to, I guess, Burns thereafter,
right?
Those are the guys at the top of the division, and you're not getting any closer to justifying yourself to get another title fight. Like there are guys climbing up the ranks. There's Shavkat Rakhmonov, who is a lesser known name, climbing up the rankings. There's Bilal Muhammad, who is trying to he's positioning himself to get a title shot. Like there are guys who have not had that title shot yet that Masvidal at his age will have to go in the back of the line and wait behind. And then I don't think that's something he'd want to do, but I could see him as the type of overall fighter with that type of moxie that he has, being like, okay, I'm going to do what everybody else is doing. And I'm going to take myself over to the boxing ring and I'm going to put on some good fights with some other MMA guys where there is a resurgence right now in the interest in the sport of boxing, as long as good matchups are being made. And these guys, like Jorge Masvidal, grew up a big fan of Roberto Duran. So like boxing, he puts on game bred boxing. He just had that Roy Jones versus Showtime Pettis fight that was the week before, and I think that's where I'm seeing him starting to promote that and doing all the things he's doing. I feel like he's got an eye on the stuff post UFC. I think Gilbert Burns has an eye on saying, hey, I win this fight in impressive fashion. I'm one fight away after Colby fights for the title against Leon to get that next shot. So I think because I think Masvidal loses and because I think Masvidal has options outside of just fighting in a cage, I think he adds that all up, considers his age, and goes, well, I go to the boxing ring where the UFC is not going to withhold as much money, and I could probably make more money on the event, and I can do what I want to do, promote.
So be it. Got to play the game however it's got to be played, and if that has to be, then so be it. So we'll see what's next for all of them, but we're excited for it all. Could there be a Masvidal Jake Paul fight anytime soon? We have to worry about that, or is it off the table?
I think he said it where he's like, if Jake didn't lose, there'd be more reason for him to do it. But Jake can get himself back on track, but it's going to have to take the right type of fights to get there, because it would almost feel like more Masvidal is doing Jake Paul a favor than Jake Paul is doing Masvidal a favor, even if the money is right. Because Masvidal has had his accomplishments. It would just have to be the right type of. It would have to make sense. So I wouldn't. I'll never say never to that. I mean, I could see him in Tyron Woodley. There's people want to see good fights, man. Like I always the way I always say it is this is when it comes to combat sports, maybe you don't have to be the biggest diehard fan of the game to appreciate it, because realistically, if let's say there's a game of one-on-one basketball on one street corner, a game of paddleball or pickleball, tennis, whatever you want to call it on another corner, then you got, I don't know, we'll call it cornhole. I don't know whatever. And then you got a fight.
Yeah.
Four street corners, random people. You don't know any of them. You don't know their skill set. You don't know how good they are.
Right.
But you got to pick one to watch. Which one are you going to go watch?
Hey, the animalistic instinct in humans, they're going to want to see the fight, of course.
Fighting over there. What's happening?
What's happening, right? So the fight game has always been, it's rooted in our inner desire to see people go after it and fight each other, right? We can't help it. And then when you add, because it could be, doesn't matter if it's two drunk dudes at a bar, doesn't matter if it's world champions. And when people try to rip on this like influencer stuff, I say this. They're like, oh, influencers are taking over the sports scene. I say this: if Michael Jackson and Prince fought in the 80s on pay-per-view,
what are we doing?
they would outsell everybody else, because it doesn't matter. It's because fighting is not a sport that interest is dependent on skill.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't really want to see two bad basketball players play one-on-one.
No.
I don't really care how good you are at fighting, as long I do in a way, but if it's evenly matched,
you want to see someone get knocked out.
I'm curious,
Yeah.
And if they could talk it up like these influencers can, I'm even more curious, so that's where I think the fight game it's just interesting. It's always been interesting. And you get an event like this, natural animosity between Pereira, Adesanya, Masvidal is a big talker, Burns is a good fighter. It's a good card, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. You brought influencers, so I got to ask this real quick. With Jake, if he loses again, is that it for him? Or
well, I mean, it depends. I feel like if he loses
after a second loss,
if it's Tommy Fury and he loses to him again, then it's very clear that like, hey, Tommy's barely even like a fighter, like he's barely even a boxer like that. He hasn't fought anybody like that. So the limitations start to show up, and you go, okay, it's not in your cards to be a world champion.
Right.
But there's still money to be made by doing this. It's just a matter of, are people going to still care? And that's what I feel like. If I was advising Jake Paul, I mean, pride is telling him right now, I got to beat Tommy Fury, and he knocked him down with a jab in that 5th round, I think it was. But he wasn't a better boxer, and he's not. Doesn't mean he doesn't have power, because he is. And Jake Paul takes himself really seriously as a boxer, which is a good thing. Like if you're going to be in that game, it's the hurt business. You don't really play boxing. You play other sports. You don't play boxing. People will really get seriously hurt. So it's a good thing he's taking it seriously. He's got the type of money to where he can actually like get better in ways that people of similar skill sets don't have that type of money to invest in the ice baths, all the round the clock treat, having one trainer train specifically him, having a team full of sparring partners, you know, like paying for all these amenities. That's where he has the ability to climb up the ranks a lot faster. But I think the limitations are shown. And if I was advising him, I would say, hey, go fight KSI, YouTuber versus YouTuber, get your moxie back, then go fight Tommy Fury. Then
his brother already fought KSI though.
Right.
Yeah, get revenge for your brother. You know, like I'm not in that YouTube realm like that. But
I'll add this too. I heard there might have been some kind of acquisition that went down that in regards to UFC and WWE that kind of not merged the two, but I guess they're under the same umbrella now officially. So are we going to see more of that crossover any kind of way? Is that official or is that just reading tweets or something?
Yeah, so Endeavor is the company, right, that is headed by Ari Emanuel. If you've watched, what's it called? Entourage. Ari Gould, the character, based off of Ari Emanuel loosely.
Oh,
loosely.
Okay.
Yeah. But Endeavor acquired the UFC from the Fertittas and put it as part of their portfolio for sports and live events. And I think they just see a type of strategic partnership involved where once the WWE wanted to sell 51% of its portfolio, Endeavor stepped up and said, hey, there is a growing interest in, again, it's the influencers that are really bringing it back because WWE was kind of sleepwalking for a while.
Yeah.
But you're getting Bad Bunny in there doing stuff, right? You're getting the Pauls, you're getting Snoop Dogg at, you know, like you got tight ends like, you know, Travis Kelce. You got George Kittle, like Gronkowski. Those guys are all, they grew up wrestling fans. And if you can get those guys to come in, like it's influencers bringing that clout to the event. And I think Endeavor was like, okay, we can use these, leverage the relationships, cross-pollinate when it comes to, you know, like boosting talent on our channels. And so it's, I don't think they want to get the lines too murky and get the water too murky. But, I mean, yeah, I really think it comes down to like, it's the entertainment business and, that all sells. So Endeavor was like, we'll buy.
Got you. No, yeah, excited to see what comes of that. And WrestleMania just went down last weekend, and people love that. Great two-day event that went down as well. And full of surprises and fun things, as you mentioned, with a bunch of celebrities and influencers and all that alike joining into the fun there. So I'm excited for all that's to come in that. But lastly, going back to what we're here for, more specifically, these fights that are going on this weekend, very excited for this right now and looking to see what's going to go down with Pereira and Adesanya and Burns and Masvidal. So two great fights this weekend. You said we're leaning on both of those. I'm rolling with your picks there, and Pereira and Burns both getting the job done. And yeah, just excited and think even beyond the picks, it should be great fights across the board. Any quick note on the other fights that are on here?
Look at fight number 5 right there on your screen. Raul Rosas Jr. versus Christian Rodriguez. Both those guys came from Dana White's Contender Series. They're two guys who you know, Rosas is 18 years old. Rodriguez is 25. They're both prospects, but I mean, to be an 18-year-old and in the UFC fighting on a pay-per-view, it's pretty incredible, and it shows what they believe in him. So I think it's not a walk in the park. Rodriguez actually just was on our show today, our UFC Unfiltered podcast, and got to talk to him a little bit. His head's in the right space. He's like not taking it personally because he thinks like he's not of the belief that the UFC is just throwing him in there to make Rosas Jr. looks good. Because if that was the case, the odds wouldn't be Rosas Jr. only being like a minus 280 favorite. Like it would be a lot wider, you know, if it was really just a showcase fight. It is kind of going to showcase Rosas Jr. being 18 years old, but it's showcasing him against a guy who is formidable in Christian Rodriguez. So look out for that fight right there. Kevin Holland, entertaining striker. Santiago Ponzinibbio. I mean, and then Yanez versus Fontman. Like this is one of the better UFC cards in a while. So I would definitely be trying to get to a TV, whether you go to Buffalo Wild Wings or
Wingstop.
Yeah,
I guess they gotta have the game on.
They got the game. I don't know
really
if
a bar.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
Oh, I just know. I've never been. I mean, Wingstop is much better when it comes to the wings.
Yeah. But you're talking about the atmosphere.
I'm talking about like watching.
It's all right. You got it.
Yeah. So, yeah, exciting stuff, man. I'll be locked in. So
for sure, I'm right with you in that. Should be great stuff across the board. I'll be tuned in for it all, and appreciate you for all your insight you gave us on that. We're taking notes and all, and we'll be following and see if those picks follow through. So yeah, just good stuff there. Alec, you were kind of quiet the whole time. Any thoughts on anything? I know you may not have to be an expert, but any comment on stuff going on this weekend?
No, I was just learning from Jake because combat sports kind of my blind spot in terms of the major sports. But like still as a casual, I'm aware of Adesanya. I'm aware of Masvidal. So I was a bit surprised to hear that he had both of them losing in these matchups. But it sounds like Burns and Pereira are the real deal in their own rights. So sounds like it should be a very intriguing matchup, and the rest of the card as well too.
Hey man, it's like the Lakers, man. They have the names, but they may not be the best talent. So it just is what it is. You know, tough times.
All right, that might have been a low blow. But but if we're in the spirit of fighting, I'd call that a low blow. Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. But good stuff there across the board.
I did have one question for Jake though. Fighting adjacent. Have you seen Creed 3?
Oh man, I think I want to go see it a second and third time.
I saw it twice in theaters. So
I've seen every Rocky movie. I grew up watching the Rocky movies. I mean, at my core, started off as a boxing fan first. Gravitated to the UFC, but still love both.
Okay.
And but the Creed movies, man, Apollo to Adonis, Rocky, the spirit of Rocky Balboa lingers in this film, even though he's not there.
Yeah.
I do like the way I like the direction they went with it as a film. I don't want to spoil anything to anybody who hasn't seen it.
We did a full review, so it's all good. If you
what you gotta say, man.
Man, I loved it though. I really did, and I think what I love too is there is a lot of momentum in women's boxing right now.
Okay.
They're the best are fighting the best, which is like one of the things people love about the UFC is it's less politics involved, and the UFC has more control of the top fighters than the sport of boxing does. So when we get the biggest fights in boxing, like I'm sure I'll be back to talk about Tank and Ryan.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's like, hey, when the best fight the best in boxing, everyone's getting tuned in because like the spectacle is always there. And the history of the sweet science is great. But I did love the presentation, and I loved obviously being at Dodger Stadium. Man, come on.
Yeah, that was dope. Dope.
So very excited for where the movie can go next. And just looking forward to all that's going on in boxing and in all areas. So again, great stuff across the board here. We thank you, Jake, for joining us this week. Alec, again, great talking with you as always. We'll be back shortly. Actually, we may talk after the Laker Clipper game. We might come back for that later on. But for now, 4 episodes here with Jake that we definitely appreciate him joining us. We're taking somewhat of we'll be blunt here. We're taking more of a first take type approach, having some guys coming in, having the rotating crew of good guys to come in and add some analysis to the game, And Jake definitely was a guy that we wanted to bring in to be a more consistent voice for us for the show here. We really appreciate him for this week. We had 4 episodes with him this week that just introducing him to the show again, getting y'all familiar with him. And going forward, as we introduce more voices, we may start mixing and matching and having a group of guys on here having a great conversation with you about stuff that goes on. So excited for that. But again, just for now, definitely thank you, Jake. And excited to tune into the stuff you have going on as well and what's next with everything. So great stuff here. And any last words from either of you guys, just a quick send off.
Just let people know like where they can find you, Jake, if they're looking for you like on socials or whatever.
Man, if you're trying to get annoyed with some tweets, you can always follow me there at Jake Gould 10. I'll try to keep it, topical. I'll never claim to be an expert in everything. I'm just a fan at the end of the day, but I do love. I try to keep my eye on the ball on what's going on because man, nothing like this, nothing like sports, man. I really think it's look, the trash talk we talked about at the beginning, the rivalries with Adesanya and Pereira, and then the changing dynamics of teams like we're seeing with the Dodgers and the Rams. That's all part of it, man. And it's like it's its own type of soap opera. So
yeah,
anytime you guys want to have me on, man, you know where to find me.
Oh yeah, you'll be back shortly. Got to talk about that Tank fight and the draft and all that's coming up. So excited to get into that as well when that comes up. But for now, again, this is great stuff, and we appreciate you for being here. So again, appreciate y'all. Appreciate Jake for being here. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Again, as I said before, like, rate, review, subscribe, comment, share, post, whatever you gotta do to show love. Appreciate all of that, and we definitely will show that back to you. So I appreciate y'all for that. I will see y'all again very shortly. We'll be talking about the Lakers Clippers more in depth as that goes down. We'll talk about Air when that comes out. And we have another guest for you guys next week to talk about more stuff as sports progress, as they always do. So good stuff across the board here. Again, appreciate y'all. And we out of here, man. Thank you. Another good week, man. Peace.
Deuces.